This is episode 15 on wisdom, and we're on a 31-day journey through the book of Proverbs. And today we're on chapter 17. I believe the theme today that Solomon is expressing to us is wisdom for our relationships. I'm going to highlight 9 verses through chapter 17. I'll read all 9 of them, and then I'm going to go through and just kind of take us through some highlights of explaining what these verses are saying to us about wisdom for relationships. He says in verse 1, "Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife." And in verse 4, he says, "A wicked person listens to deceitful lips. A liar pays attention to a destructive tongue." In verse 9, he says, "Whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends." In verse 10, "A rebuke impresses a discerning person more than 100 lashes of a fool." Verse 14, "Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out." And in verse 17, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity." Verse 19, "Whoever loves a quarrel loves sin, and whoever builds a high gate invites destruction." Verse 22, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." Verse 27 and verse 28, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." I would encourage you to read all of these verses, but I want to highlight these 9, 10 verses that I believe speak to us about our relationships. Wisdom for our relationships. In verse 1, he said, "It is better to have peace in our homes with very little than to have this home full of abundance and have a house full of discord or dissension." He says in verse 4 that people with evil working in their heart will find gratification in malicious conversations about someone else's life, that they can't get enough of gossip, they can't get enough of the drama. And I think it's important for us to really guard the intentions and the motivations of our heart, even when we're concerned about someone, and we're bringing maybe to someone an issue in someone's life, and we do bring it maybe to leadership, but leadership needs to be very careful that we don't really dive into somewhat of the details that don't really matter, and it's not going to help bring someone to a place of reconciliation. And in verse 9, he says, "Love covers an offense." Like, let it go. There's no sense in holding on to offense and things that trouble us, or where someone made a mistake and they got it wrong. That we have to understand that people are going to get it wrong sometimes, that we even do. And I can't hold other people to a higher standard that I'm not willing to hold myself, that I'm sometimes giving myself a pass. Like, I really didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean to say it that way. And I forgive myself. But if someone else says it in a wrong way, that I should be able to give them a pass too. However, we also must embrace in this proverb that there is an urgency that we need to do better, that we need to try to do it right and try to get it right, that if we keep offending and we keep making those mistakes over and over, eventually our grace is going to run out in those relationships. And in verse 10, he says, "A wise person confronts and corrects privately," not publicly, but privately, that they keep it private and close. And this form of correction is far more productive than a fool lashing out publicly and just blabbing it to others. Like, social media is really bad for this, that we see where people are publicly shaming others where they're getting it wrong, shaming people, shaming friends, shaming family where they're getting it wrong, like publicly spreading it out to the world. Shaming different businesses where they may be getting it wrong. And can you imagine living that kind of life if somebody every day pointed out something that was going wrong in your life? Like, they shamed you every day publicly. Can you imagine living under that stress? And in essence, that's what we're doing as a society, but this is foolish. That it is best to come alongside someone privately and bring correction to them. If you truly care about that person, pull them aside privately, share with them your heart, and share with them how they could correct some things, and that maybe even share some things where you're getting it wrong. Like, it's important for us to help people, but we should help them privately. And the Bible says that we are wise to come alongside and correct privately. And in verse 14, he says, starting a quarrel is like a leak in a dam. Like eventually that leak is going to turn into the dam busting open and destruction is going to happen. What is he doing? He's sharing with us that it is wise for us to quickly resolve the matter, to quickly reconcile. Why is it? Because once that leak turns into the dam breaking, it's hard to go back and restore some of those relationships. And not only the person or the two parties involved or the two relationships involved, but you know how we are as humans. We end up sharing our offense with 5 other people. And before we know it, that 5 other people are contaminated with our offense. Jesus talked about this, that he says, don't pick up someone else's offense. It is literally a bait of Satan to pick up someone else's offense and to be offended. It is poison to us. And he's saying that it is a dam when we start quarrels, when we don't go and resolve them quickly. Now, this is going to require, it's going to take humility and taking ownership of what part do we own in this relationship, and how can we exercise humility, and how can we take ownership in bringing reconciliation to those relationships. And in verse 22, he talks about how cheerfulness can really bring life to someone, that we should bring joy and cheerfulness into our relationships, that when we're cheerful and we have a heart full of joy and an attitude of joy, that it is contagious, that we want to spread cheerfulness and joy and celebration into the hearts of others so that we can refresh others with the joy that God has given us. And in verse 27 and 28, this is just practical wisdom on relationships and how to have self-awareness, that we use wisdom on how much we share, that you don't have to say everything you know or everything that you're feeling, that you don't have to speak everything that comes to your mind, and that you don't have to prove to people that you're smart. And sometimes when we're trying to just share everything that we have, there's a motive there. Maybe there's some insecurity and we want people to know how intelligent we are. But this really actually kind of works against us. People begin to see us as very surface level and superficial, and it actually makes us sometimes look foolish and not really wise. And he says, you'll be given opportunities to share. And in that moment, those opportunities that you're presented with, those are the right times to make a good impact. That in those right moments when you share what you know or what you're feeling or maybe your opinion, it'll have much more weight and it'll have much more impact than just babbling and sharing our opinions, just talking off the top of our head and just taking control of these conversations. And really that makes us look foolish. That we can model in these opportune times that we are learning too. You don't want to appear to be a know-it-all. That you want to express to others that you're learning too, that you're listening, that you can learn something from them and from the conversation, and that you're interested in hearing from others, that this is good wisdom on our relationships. I pray today that you glean the wisdom from chapter 17 as Solomon is sharing with us on how to exercise wisdom in our relationships. And that as we do, that we will prove to be a faithful friend, that we will prove to be really, truly people who are depositing greatness into our friends, our families, our spouses, our children, into other believers, and that we can be faithfully considered a friend to others.